Before the video starts, I just want to make it clear that this video isn't meant to be any sort of drama or anything like that. It's simply just to clear up something that has been on my mind for the last few months, as well as a bit of a topic that's been somewhat talked about quite a bit now, but has never been fully cleared up. So I'll be doing that in this video, and I've never done a video like this, so I'll try to keep it short and simple as possible while explaining everything. For those of you who aren't familiar with her, Ali's like a 22-year-old Twitch streamer who started out streaming Hive about 2 years ago. Now, if you are from her community or are familiar with it, you'll know how extremely tight her and I were. I did indeed consider her one of my closest friends, and I also had tons and tons of support for her constantly. I would be at literally every stream I could possibly attend, and I would practically no-life her Discord server, even support her financially from time to time by donating her like $500 plus through Twitch bits and subs, as well as boosting her Discord server a various amount of times, and even sending her some nitro times when she didn't have any. You get the idea. I basically had like a lot of support for her, and hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of who she was and what our relationship was like. Overall, we had a good relationship for about 2 years until a few weeks prior when things would change a little bit. For context on what happened, you need to understand that the next part I'm about to talk about involves two different behavior characteristics, which includes being severely controlling and manipulative. Now, if you don't know who Icy Nutella is, he's a Minecraft YouTuber with over 20,000 subscribers, very good friend of mine. Now, Ali has never liked Icy. In fact, she hated him a lot. Now, that's fine, you don't have to like someone. It's entirely up to you who you like and don't like, but I didn't know how much this would affect me later on. Also, real quick, I just want to mention that I won't have evidence of everything that was really said, since I didn't know all of this stuff would happen. I never thought to take screenshots or even record calls about all this as well. While I still have a bunch of evidence I'll be showing on screen, the majority of the stuff I'm about to talk about was also talked about in me and Ali's DMs a lot, which she actually ended up mass deleting, which I can't do much about there, so yeah. Now, out of the blue one day, Ali would start asking me why I was talking to Icy and why I was even friends with him. And I obviously considered Icy a good friend, you know, like we'd known each other for a long time. However, when I told Ali that, she'd resort to calling me insane and crazy for being friends with Icy because she considered him a bad person, which again, you know, I know a lot of people don't like Icy, but you don't have to like someone, as I said. However, I started off hoping she would drop the topic, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. While being in a VC with Ali a day or two later, she would talk about Icy being like a bad person and even called him a pedo, which was kind of insane considering he was like 15 years old at the time. And at this point, Ali told me I would have to like cut full contact with him and unadd him, which I was shocked at and didn't really know what to say. She even went further by saying if I didn't do this, I would lose my staff position because at the time I was a Twitch mod for her as well as a Discord server manager for her, and she said she'd give me a while to think about this. Around the time, she also told me to avoid her community because she didn't consider her community like the safest around me, which did hurt a bit, I can't lie, but having like a huge attachment to our friendship at the time, I decided to leave the call kind of hoping that would all just pass by. However, none of that happened because things just got like progressively worse from there. For those of you who don't know, I used to be staff for Zika, which is Minecraft Bedrock Edition's like largest practice server, and as you can guess, Ali didn't like Zika. She didn't like the community, the staff, none of it, which, you know, I get. Lots of people don't like Zika or anything like that, which again, you don't have to like something you don't like, but she did want me to resign, which I was stunned at because I did enjoy Zika staffing a lot, and even though I did resign a couple weeks ago, it was a great experience like overall. On top of Ali telling me to resign from Zika, apparently there was a bunch of people from the competitive side of the community which Ali didn't like, which again, you don't have to like someone, that's fine. You can dislike someone, it's entirely up to you. However, when she saw my mutuals with some of them, she'd say I would have to unadd them as well as like cut contact with all of them, including people like Zero Glitch and Minecat. Literally half of the people I had added, I like didn't even talk to that Ali didn't like. I didn't even speak to them that much. Something she assumed a lot was if I had them added meant I also apparently talked to them, which wasn't the case. Just because you have someone added on Discord doesn't mean you talk to them. Now around this time is when Ali told me to choose if I was going to cut contact with everyone, including Icy, and resign from Zika. Now I want to mention, I've known Ali for like 2 years and Icy for like 4 to 5 years, so I found it like super funny when she was trying to get me to unadd him. Now, of course, I didn't do any of this because, like, hello, why would I do that? Makes zero sense. Eventually, she did take away all my staff positions in her community and even went as far as removing me from some of her friend servers, which did hurt quite a bit. Again, I won't lie, but seeing as I'd done nothing wrong except make my own decisions did lead me here. But wanting to remain on good terms with her, I did humbly accept my seemingly unfair demotion and hope that things would still remain well between us. However, if you thought that was it, it's not, because this is the part where things practically escalated beyond the point of like no fixing. A couple of days later, Ali opened up staff apps and said I could even apply, and I thought I would to try and get my previous position back. Now, sadly, I did go back to trial mod, not even just mod, like literally trial mod, and with all the experience and staff positions I held slash currently still hold in the community, which Ali knew of, it was definitely a bit odd to just give me trial mod, but realistically, it was due to me not making certain choices that she wanted me to make. But again, I thought I'd try to, like, work my way up there. However, this one things became a little bit harder for me. Ali and another individual who's also staff for her and is still staff for her would start to gang up on me in her own server and belittle me a little bit due to my Zika staff position, basically making me feel not so good at times. And Ali would also tend to continue saying extremely wild stuff that I thought was quite saddening. Remember how earlier I mentioned I boosted Ali's Discord server a various amount of times? Well, at the time, I cancelled most boosts due to it being quite expensive, and ended up moving one boost to Zika and keeping another one on her server. And when she instantly found like a minute later, she started belittling me about that as well. She would continue making multiple remarks about me not boosting her server and how much she hated Zika. Like, even though I literally moved one boost, and eventually when I moved both, she got more upset. Now, at this point, she would say more hurtful things, like about the way I was talking one time when she asked me a question, and even telling me she didn't feel like we were friends. She would also say how upset she was and how unvalued she felt, and it felt like I had changed. Now, saying she felt unvalued was kind of crazy after everything I had possibly done to support her. For example, on her 22nd birthday, I literally got her whole community to sign a virtual birthday card, which she then ended up crying to when I gave to her, and even said she'd never ever be able to thank me for it, which is kind of ironic looking back on now. At this point, I didn't really know how things would keep going on from here on out, when eventually later one night I would get a DM from her basically saying our friendship was done, and after I responded, she ended up kicking me from her Discord server, which I thought was a little odd because, like, what did I do to get kicked from it? But afterwards, I would catch her in a mutual server we shared where she would continue to rant about it, which I did find kind of funny. Eventually, I ended up telling Icy about all this while we were in VC, and we even recorded a short together. However, when Icy posted that short later on, a few minutes after, Ali found out, pinged me in the same server we were in, where she was also ranting, and proceeded to get pretty upset about it, all because I was in somebody's YT short. She then proceeded to ban me from her Discord, ban me from her Twitch, and even went as far as blocking me both on Twitter and Discord as well, all in that same time span. After everything, from there on out, a bunch of people just began asking me what happened with me and Ali and why I quote-unquote left her server, which I kind of just shrugged off or just ghosted, not really saying anything about it, not wanting to make like too much of a big deal out of it. However, if you're someone who asked me that, now you know what happened basically. You guys are probably going to be like, no way someone is being this dramatic over nothing. Well, shockingly, she actually enjoys like being dramatic, I guess. I'm going to end this video off by stating a few quick things. First, I mentioned earlier in the video that something Ali didn't like was that I quote-unquote changed, which, obviously I'm not going to be the same exact person I was like 2 years ago. When I met Ali, I was 14 years old. So yeah, people grow and change. I'm now 16 years old, almost 17 in July. You get the idea. But here's a screenshot of something Icy said as well that also kind of relates to what I'm talking about now. So yeah. Second and lastly, to conclude, well, Ali did suck a lot, and it did hurt a lot as well, but it was her decision and I respect that. Even though Ali ended up doing all this just because I made my own choices instead of making the choices she wanted me to make that would like benefit her. Even though I'd done genuinely nothing wrong, it still ended up happening, which sucked. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and unfortunately stuff like this does happen. Overall, I made this video just to like kind of explain everything, since a lot of you guys would still continue thinking I was like a huge fan of her or was just curious about why you fell out. So yeah, anyways, if there's a moral of like the video, it'd be that you shouldn't be like Ali. She's like the example of a terrible friend. I'm not saying that in a rude way or like a mean way or trying to be offensive, but it's a more truthful and realistic like opinion. So yeah, I know this is a bit of a different video than usual, but I will be uploading good quality vids that I have planned from here on out. So yeah, that's about it. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Take care.